Welcome, everyone. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. Thank you guys so much for both registering and joining LiveU Sports webinar today. I'm Janelle Fleming, the Director of Sales for the U.S. Sports team at LiveU. And we're here to talk about the new reality of live sports production and how it's changed over the past year and even prior to that. We're going to learn from some experts on their experiences and the changes they may have had to make recently and even prior to the pandemic. Maybe hear some war stories. We'll try to keep it interesting. If you signed up for this webinar, you should have received a free copy of our live sports production playbook. I hope you get a chance to read it. If you've not, I think it provides some helpful insights into this new reality and how LiveU specifically fits into it. A lot of what is in the ebook is what we will be talking about today in this webinar. But before we begin, we thought we'd play a quick video introducing LiveU and highlighting some of the cool sports we've been a part of over the last few years. I'll have Joyce go ahead and start it. So without further ado, today joining me on the webinar are some special guests, but most importantly, they are LiveU customers. To start, our first guest I'll introduce is Scott Railing. Scott is the president and founder of L2 Productions, which is an Austin, Texas-based live production company. Scott, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Janelle.
Scott, you've been one of the earliest adopters of at-home production. Can you share a little bit about what L2 Production does? I think for those of our audience who aren't familiar with you.
Sure. So L2 Productions is an audio and video production company based in Austin, Texas. Been in existence for about 8 years. We specialize in live event production packaging. So we do about 80% of our business in the sports industry. We do quite a bit of work with NCAA conferences and some professional organizations like Major League Rugby, Major League Lacrosse, Minor League Baseball, USL Soccer, etc. And then we do a fair amount of music production as well for big festival events like Austin City Limits Music Festival and South by Southwest and so forth. And when we started the company, it was a traditional truck and trailer mobile unit production company. And then over the last 3 to 4 years, we've developed this remote production solution, largely leveraging the LiveU technology, and have essentially shifted our entire business in that direction, where now we do over 50% of everything that we do with that model.
Awesome. I'm not sure, I'm losing you a little bit, Scott. I'm not sure if it's a shindig or internet issue, but I got most of it. So thank you again for joining us.
You're welcome.
We're going to dive into what you do today and a little bit more further. Next, I want to introduce Jeff Newbarth from Callaway Golf. Jeff is the executive producer of Callaway Media Productions and a fairly new LiveU customer. He recently acquired the LU800 Pro unit. Jeff, welcome. Appreciate you joining today.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Of course. We actually have a lot of golfers and golf fans who are familiar with Callaway. I know you know that. But I don't know if they're familiar about what the media production team does and your role. So tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so we started kind of down this journey about 6 years ago, where our CMO had the vision that there weren't a lot of people talking about Callaway. The brand was kind of down, so he kind of made a commitment that we were going to talk about Callaway, and we were going to create more content than anybody. We were going to try to do everything as much as we can internally and create noise about the brand. We also started making some really good golf clubs, and all that kind of led to becoming the #1 brand in golf, which is super exciting. But in terms of the content world, we've done everything from commercials to live integrations using the LiveU setup with the Golf Channel, which is really the primary reason we got involved. Was we entered a huge partnership marketing arrangement with the Golf Channel, and we want to be able to talk to them directly. So that's been tremendous for our business. And then we do, kind of all kinds of sales training and stuff. Through this COVID world, we used to have multiple sales meetings a year and training sessions because we launch a lot of golf clubs, and we've used the technology to be able to really showcase the golf clubs in a way that no one else has been able to do. In the past, it's been, sort of like this. You'd be sitting at home and holding up a golf club and saying, here's a new club. But using LiveU, we can go to a range, or we can go to the robot testing. We could even, in theory, go to a tour pro and have them talk about why it's better. So it's more show me, don't tell me, which is kind of the world we want to be in.
Yeah, no, I love the idea of like a brand connecting with a fan in a unique way that you guys are approaching this, especially in a sport like golf, because that's really, they want to see the newest stuff and they want to ask questions, and it's fascinating to see that how you guys are doing that. And I'm happy that you're using LiveU, of course.
As are we.
So last but certainly not least, I'm going to welcome Justin Thompson. He actually started using the LiveU system for the first time during the pandemic, sort of the middle of it in summer of last year, to cover the Rockstar Triple Crown series. And recently he's acquired an LU800 as well. Justin, welcome. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, Janelle. Thanks for having me.
So you're the CEO of JetWorks International. Tell us a little bit more about JetWorks and what you do for the extreme sports industry that you specialize in.
Well, first off, we're the Canadian action sports leader. So everything we do is under a microscope in our country, let's say. So we're excited that, obviously, coming across the LiveU technology there about a year and a bit ago, and then getting in touch with you, Janelle. It saved our sport. The sport of motocross is what we mainly focus on. And with us going coast to coast in some very remote areas, we've traditionally done satellite trucks. And you start putting, satellite truck with multiple semis that have to, work around it. It gets costly. For two, your satellite window is very marginal. So you have to, hit your marks when you're doing your production. So during the pandemic, if we would have went that route with no fans, we're heavily related around fans. We wouldn't have had an action sports series last year with Rockstar. So if we didn't come across your technology, it saved the day. Janelle herself did a lot to get things organized, but man, oh man, the technology is bar none.
Awesome. Well, we're happy to have you on board, and it's fun to watch you grow what you're doing with the product. It's exciting. The LiveU at-home production solution has been around for a number of years, but I think with the pandemic, a lot of people who were considering adopting it, the option was sort of expedited. But to put it simply, the at-home production idea is to backhaul individual camera sources from a remote location back to an off-site production facility or control room, and allow the full production to be done in a central location. So rather than bringing the full production and staff on site, you can actually do everything remotely. So in this sort of social distancing world, I think a lot of things made sense to start leveraging this system. So I wanted to ask the first question for the entire panel has been really, what's been the biggest adjustment in your business since the pandemic? I know it's like a question you hear all the time, but is it finding events to produce? Is it doing it safely? Is it location? Scott, since you've been doing this, for 8+ years, I think we'll start with you. What's been your biggest adjustment?
Well, it's certainly not finding events. We've found it to be just the opposite, right? The pandemic has driven a lot of organizations to these sorts of solutions. So really for us, and it's a great problem to have, it's been keeping up with that demand. It's for a variety of reasons. It started with safety, right? As things started coming back around, there was policies with venues, certain states, networks, trying to limit the number of people in venue, right? So this solution checks that box. Obviously, you're able to do a live production with far fewer people in the venue than you would have with a traditional model. And then the other big one is cost. Of course, last year, almost the entire year, the sports and entertainment industry was shut down. So all of these organizations are now, looking at budgets very closely and trying to come up with ways to produce live events much more efficiently and much more affordably. So once again, this type of a solution lends itself to that. So we've seen demand just go through the roof. As far as kind of new challenges, I would say a lot of it revolves around logistics. Now that we are doing live events, and it's dissipated a little bit over time, but when things first started coming back last fall, like with football season, for example, we found it just extremely challenging just to the logistics on site, getting people in and out of the venue, moving people and equipment around the venue. It just added so many different moving parts, from testing to the process for getting in the venue to how you move around the venue. We had to end up adding like 4 hours to all of our call times. So just things like that, there's just so many more moving parts with regards to logistics to get things done. But again, going back to the first point, the very positive aspect of it, and you hate to see a worldwide pandemic be the driver of this, but it really has completely changed the industry in terms of everybody's moving now towards these solutions. And what we're saying is now they're sticking. Now that people have adopted it, they love it. And now we're actually seeing just the opposite, where we're having a tough time getting certain clients to go back to the on-site model. They want to keep doing it with the LiveU remote model. So yeah, everything's fundamentally completely changed in the last year. And to me, it's in a very positive direction.
Agreed. Justin, how about you? What's been, the biggest adjustment in your business?
I got a couple unique stories. Obviously, one, both of them, Janelle, but I mean, the first one is obviously with the Triple Crown Series in Canada. We hit some big roadblocks. I mean, Canada is way more locked down than anywhere else in the world. Well, not in the world, in North America for sure.
I was gonna say, just the U.S. doesn't believe in it.
Yeah, so it's like including right now. I mean, we only have 3 to 4 people out of traditional 30 people in the office. Everything's on complete lockdown, so we've had to be very picky with the way that we set this up. And I mean, it was nerve-wracking with trying new technology, new things in a pandemic, coming right out of the gate. And we had a couple bumps at the very beginning, but just from us not knowing the technology and how it utilize it and everything like that. So once we got it under control, I mean, like I say, it saved our business here in Canada. I mean, we would have been a whole calendar year, 15 national events that are on Fox Sports that would have not happened. And we managed to pull off 13 of those 15 events. I mean, so it was great. So that was one side of it. The next one, we moved into doing other events for other partners of ours that we work with. And one is the US Arena Cross Series. It got to go this fall. We jumped into the 800 and started doing it with that. And the hurdle we had is instantly out of the gate. I think maybe a week before the first show, they said we can't go over the border, even with work visas, with whatever. So we had to find a new staff to do cameras from down in the South and in the US and transmit it back on the LU800. Have never used it. Just talking to them over the phone, working with the great staff at LiveU and getting it set up. And I mean, right out of the gate from first show to the end, we had it. It was perfect. I mean, everything that 800 is bulletproof with what it can do. And that's another thing that's added to value to, our series moving forward, our partner series moving forward, our sponsors. And I mean, we deal with a wide variety, right from every manufacturer of motorcycle, which is Honda, Yamaha, Kawasaki, KTM. So we have a lot on our back. So if the technology wasn't as good as it was, we'd have people down our throats with it in about one race. So I'm just fortunate. I met Janelle and came across this stuff. And I mean, anybody who's had or is looking at doing the remote setup, I mean, I would dive in, and definitely I would do it side by side with LiveU.
Thank you. Jeff, how about you? I mean, golf was sort of the first sport that came back, non-contact sport. Did you have to adjust for once it returned? What's changed for you?
Yeah, I mean, golf is certainly, you hate to say it, it's been one of the big winners in this whole situation. I mean, we're seeing levels of participation that really were only matched in 1996 when this young golfer out of Stanford University named Tiger Woods burst onto the scene. So we're seeing people playing the game in ways that no one has. But yeah, to your point, one of my kind of side projects I was involved in was the match, all three of those. So I worked, that was really the first live sporting event where we did it completely on site. The one down at the Medalist Club featuring Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. So I was the producer for that one that aired on Turner Sports. So that really opened my eyes to like, hey, everything has to be rethought. Everything has to be done differently. I remember the director, Steve Bynum, and I were about 13 feet apart in a mobile unit where normally we're sitting about an inch apart, kind of pointing at monitors. And it just really changed how you did everything. So back towards Callaway, once we saw this momentum building in the game, we fortunately had a game improvement club, Big Bertha, that was coming out last fall. And luckily for us, lots of people decided to come back to the game who had not played in years and years. And lo and behold, they needed a game improvement club. So we needed a way to really capture content and do it safely. And, we've really limited at whether it's our driving range where we do a lot of our testing, just the amount of people that can be there. So now we can capture that content with 1 to 2 people using the LiveU system, send it back to our control room, and we can go live with it. So we did, Facebook Lives with R&D folks where normally we would have 8 or 10 people down there. We did it with 2 people down there, and it just allowed for it to happen. And as golf continues to boom, like I said at kind of the start, we picked up a partnership with the Golf Channel. And part of our partnership with the Golf Channel is that when we have Callaway athletes at our performance center, which is in Carlsbad, California, they're located now in Stamford, Connecticut. They want to talk to Tom Watson. They want to talk to Phil Mickelson. They want to talk to Xander Schauffele, John Rahm. Well, we just literally sit them down after they're done hitting golf balls. They put, an AirPod in, get, a phone call to where they can hear the talent, and boom, we put our camera on LiveU, and they're live on the Golf Channel.
Well, I want to talk to them too.
Yeah, that's unprecedented access for our brand, right? Think about it for the athletes, because each of those athletes is wearing, whether it's a Travis Matthew logo here or a Top Golf logo here or another logo here, they're getting added value that we're helping to provide them. So it's really been a huge asset, but it's made us completely rethink things as golf has gotten more popular, and we're hoping to sustain that. But to be able to just be better and a little quicker at how we do things.
Right. Yep, totally. So next question, aside from LiveU solutions, I mean, you guys all sort of touched on it, but how has technology played a role in adapting to this new normal? Has there been anything unique that you hadn't heard of before? I think it's beneficial because, in this whole time, I feel like we were all sort of fleshing out cloud production services and audio and Zooms and all of these new, stuff that maybe was out there before. But again, everything sort of escalated in this time. So any cool technology, Justin, I'll start with you, since I know you do some cool stuff in, the motorsports series. People like in-car stuff, and they like, fans are very, very, active in your space.
Well, and that's just it. I mean, the LiveU's opened up windows that we didn't have before. So it's the nice thing is that why my team loves it so much is that we can really get creative with it, right? For instance, and I haven't even told you this, Janelle, but we had some major delays in our problems with getting content. Like we would shoot a segment from, say, morning practice. And it wasn't through the LiveU, it was just shot there. They would edit it on site because there was people there that would edit it. And then we'd always have, problems getting it back to studio, right? So that was an issue. Well, little did I know, Lewis at LiveU helped me out, is that you can just send the signal back through or send the file back through. And I mean, the time that cut down on our editing team to get everything ready for a live show at 7:00 on Fox Sports, I mean, it was immense. And that's some of the technology. I think it's awesome that we have these capabilities now that we didn't even have a couple of years ago. So it's that's some of the stuff that we know straight to the gate.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys saw the last blockbuster Netflix documentary, but it kind of gave me this like flash of like pre-pandemic to post-pandemic. And, like certain things I think are going to become obsolete, even though they were like your comfort zone, like going into a blockbuster, finding a movie. Now, like we don't even think about, leaving our house to find a movie. So I feel like we have that similar feeling in the broadcast space. Scott, any cool technology, aside from the LiveU system, anything new that you adopted that helped with the new reality?
Yeah, for us, it wasn't so much net new technologies. It was all stuff that's already out there, but things kind of had to advance at a really fast pace this year, right? Because now there's so many more moving parts. Like you mentioned, Zoom's been out for a long time. Unity Intercom's been out there, LiveU. Now all of a sudden, all of that stuff had to come into play in a pretty significant way because of this kind of decentralized model where you've got an event going on in one place, production in another, announcer play-by-play at his house in California, another one in Texas, producers all over the country. And how do you bring all that together, right, into one TV show? So that's the part that really kind of became a challenge, and it really accelerated this year is making all of that work together. So all these technologies were out there, but that sort of became a challenge for a company like us to figure out how to integrate all that and make it work. So especially around the communication piece, I'd say Unity Intercom had a good year, right? Everybody adopted that. But going back to LiveU, I'll just say it again to echo some of the other things that were said. I mean, we just appreciate it so much because in this time frame, you look at venues and organizations and so forth, people working from home and short staff and this and that and the other. We'd get into these venues, and if you got an internet problem, where's the IT staff? They're not even on site. And so we never worry about it. And we had, even, main channel linear television football games this fall that had to go out over cellular because of that. And it's just one of the things I just love so much about LiveU is we just never have to worry about that, right? If we have network, great. Of course, we use it. If not, we don't care because it's still going to get out. So that's just one plug I wanted to put in there at the end. But really, it's really about just integrating all these different things. I can't think of anything really net new that came out this year that we're using.
You started relying on technology. You sort of was sidelined, but now is
exactly
up in front and center. Yeah,
that's right.
Absolutely. So how about you, Jeff? Anything interesting technology-wise? You guys have, a little different objective, but
yeah, I think the hard part for us is because we're a full-time marketing staff of 40 individuals. We're so used to being in the office together, and we're so used to it's not like when you work in remote production where you travel in with your crew, you travel out, you have meals, and you kind of go, and then you see some of the same people at the next show. Sometimes there's other people. The communication was really one of the keys to the success for us. So I definitely agree. With Scott, with what you were just saying in terms of the cellular, we've had two instances where, we were at our headquarters and our internet just wasn't working right. We had a firewall issue or whatever. And like you said, the IT department's at home, so there's nothing that could be done. The cellular worked great for us, but we use this kind of software suite called, or really kind of a collaboration suite called Bluescape. And it's been amazing because what drives me a little, nuts sometimes is that we have Slack, we have Zoom, we have some people use Google Chat, we have Frame for video review, we have Google Docs. Well, this puts it all in one place. And it was really nice. We just did a large shoot down at the Players Championship down in Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida, with all of our tour pros. And we all had the app on our phone, and we had made like a shot list of everything we were going to do. And you literally just go into the app and change it to different colors as you've done it. You can add notes, and everybody has visibility. As certain players only want one or two people with them just for COVID safety, because on the PGA Tour they test twice a week. So last thing they want to do is get COVID or get exposed to something and have to miss out on a championship worth $2 to $3 million. The Bluescape software really helped. And what's been great since then is we've been able to put, we use Basecamp to kind of monitor our tickets. That's now in there. And then the assets are in Framer in there. So I can literally go to this one shoot thing, see the mood boards, the inspiration, the shoot itself, the assets, everything. So that one's something I would recommend maybe checking out. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. So Justin, Jeff, I think the LU800 product was the one that sort of brought you on board with LiveU, and this was during a pandemic, so not many people were signing on to anything new. What did you guys do prior to the LU800, and then I guess what has changed that you haven't said already with your adoption of the LU800? Justin, I'll start with you.
Well, there's a few things that we've obviously the LiveU lineup. We've now used the 600 and we've used the 800s, I mean, all of them are great, but one of the unique things that I wanted to touch on with the 600 that probably no one else has had to do this, because we're in the racing world, we have transponders on all the motorcycles. So every motorcycle has transponder that sends back a signal that gives you your scoring and timing loop that you see on your screen, so the viewer at home can know where, you know, little Johnny is or whatever on the race. So that was another thing that we had. There's nowhere out there in the world that we could find anything that had ever done putting that timing information through the LiveU. So we had to experiment with it. And I mean, how streamless it was for our scoring and timing person, who unfortunately last fall before the pandemic got cancer, and he had to deal with all the chemo and everything like that. He was an important person to our whole situation. So he got pulled from that, and we didn't have an option. Then the pandemic hit. We were in panic mode. We don't know what we're going to do. Well, with the LiveU, we managed to get the scoring and timing to work so that he could do it from a little island where he lives in Canada. And he would send that signal back to us at studio, and it was within, I don't know, half a second or something. We had our scoring and timing from the track to him on his island and back to us in studio, and then to Fox Sports in California. So, I mean, that technology, and that was through the 600s, but along with the 800, I mean, there's so many unique things that you can do like that with these devices. It's amazing, you know, and it's changed the way that we'll never go back to that. You know, I have semis sitting in our yard out here, and they're for sale, right? I mean, so we don't need to do that anymore, especially when the networks are willing to work with us on the LiveU setup. So, yeah,
absolutely. Jeff, how about you? I mean, same question. LU800 is what's brought you onto LiveU. What'd you do before, and how has it changed what you do now?
Yeah, before we kind of hit it and hoped, right? It was, you know, we would record something, you know, and then we would, you know, to use the Golf Channel as a client as an example, they would send me, hey, here's a list of 10 questions we'd like to ask, you know, Phil, who's coming, you know, through the test center today. I would record those questions, then we would have to, you know, upload it to Dropbox or something, and hope that our internet worked and hope that they got it. You know, and 2 to 3 days later, at some point, they would get the footage. But now it's just become so much more interactive. And, you know, Janelle, we haven't hooked it up yet, but we bought the system for our control room as well. And when we redo our control room, one of our goals is to potentially add more of these units to, you know, imagine a national sales meeting, which used to be a 3-day event where everybody, you know, 500 people would be in person together. You know, that's a lot of time to be staring at your screen. So now we have to really make it captivating. We really have to make it, you know, entertainment as much as informative. So for every 45 minutes you do where you're telling them about next year's golf clubs, you better do something that entertains them. So that's where we think once we get the full setup dialed in, we could have 2 or 3 of these units at different players' houses, or, you know, different celebrities. You know, we have relationships with whether it's a Stephen Curry or a Peyton Manning or whomever that can join stuff like that. This just makes it better and more integrated. The other thing we did that we're going to try to, you know, you definitely use LiveU, is we do national sales awards. And, you know, that's a big deal for someone. Some of these, you know, salespeople have been with the company 20, 30 years, and this is the one year that they've, you know, kind of nailed it, and they're going to be the one person selected out of hundreds to win, and they miss that moment where they get to go up in front of the whole company and get the adulation that they've earned. Now we can use this software, and we actually surprise someone by kind of showing up and recording something live with them, and everyone virtually got to at least you know, acknowledge that their fine work. But it's certainly the best we can do. But it's definitely changed, you know, how we approach things. Yeah. We're not thinking as much, you know, when you put together a 500-person sales meeting, that's millions of dollars, right? You're traveling people in from all over the world, really, because we're a global organization. Now we can do it differently. We can do it better. And quite frankly, we can do it more efficiently for those of us whose jobs are to plan.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think LiveU should adopt a sales award.
Absolutely.
Scott, so I wanted to know how your customers feel about you using REMI and at-home production, because, you know, when you and I, you know, we first met many years ago and you were doing this, I know there was always a little bit of pushback from your end customer of, oh, well, you know, I'd rather the truck be on site and I'm not familiar with this REMI production. Obviously, that's changed a lot recently. So have your customers still said no? When they did say no, you know, what was your approach to that?
Yeah, no, as you know, we had a lot of resistance for a long time, right?
Yep.
And even up until as recently as a year ago, just right before the pandemic, ESPN's a great example. We've been doing the LiveU REMI solution to deliver digital content to them for quite a few years, but they would just absolutely refuse to take a linear broadcast with this solution, again, as recently as last spring, right before the pandemic hit. And fast forward to August when football came back around, and like I mentioned earlier, everybody was faced with challenges: how to keep the numbers of people down at the venue, cancellations left and right, and trying to come up with a production solution last minute, trying to save money. All of a sudden, they were sort of forced into it, right? And so we did a big package of college football for ESPN with this solution. And as I mentioned, like halfway through the first quarter of that first week, like, oh, this stuff actually does work. Okay, great. And the next thing you know, they're booking our calendar out with this solution. And now we have a hard time getting them to let us do stuff on site. They just love.
They don't want to pay that. They don't want to pay that high ticket price.
They like the new price tag. They like being able to keep announcers at home and not traveling them. I mean, they're all in on this now. So that has dramatically changed. I mean, again, up until just a year ago, we still had, especially the bigger networks and kind of bigger clients, for no real good reason. They could never give us a real good reason why they wouldn't do it. It was just more set in your way. They're set in their ways. They're just kind of comfortable with the old school truck and trailer model, and let's do it that way. Yeah. Now that's completely changed. And another example is Major League Rugby. We just launched their season 2 weeks ago. We're in a partnership with Tupelo Raycom on that. Prior to this, it was all done trucks and trailers, and this season we'll do 120 some games with this solution, all remote, and that includes a CBS TV game of the week and a Fox Sports TV game of the week. So linear broadcasts. Again, a year ago, no way, they wouldn't have even considered it, and now they're all in with this model. So yeah, it completely changed, and I think it's here to stay.
Awesome. Justin, what about you? Pushback that you heard from Fox Sports or anybody that was like, what are you doing?
Well, we did at the very beginning. Same thing. It's I think they just kind of got the little push over the edge that they needed. And now I think, honestly, they'd rather have it because it's the matrix and everything, how easy it works for them. And it's not having to do the tests with the trucks and just the chaos that happens on site. And especially like here in Canada, we're in some remote places sometimes running these events. And having these trucks, like, park in this like crazy mountainous terrain and stuff like that, and trying to get signal, and they're on different dishes and all this craziness that we were dealing with in the past, and always worried about storms coming through. Right, it was just really chaotic that got eliminated with this new setup. And I mean, we were fortunate enough when we first dove into this that, I mean, we were worried about our events, so it wasn't like we had to convince our partners like Rockstar and everything that this was the right direction. But we didn't have a client that was going to go, hey, what the hell is this? I don't want to do this. So we were lucky that way. But on the same side, we do have a lot of very big partners that had a lot of risk to take this technology and run with it. And everybody, I think, now would never go back the other way. And I don't ever see us going back to that. Like I say, anything that we have in the old model is done to us. And I mean, the icing on the cake was when we couldn't leave Canada to go to the US to do this last project. That really was okay, now we have to go this way no matter what. So it's we're committed, and we actually are building out a second studio now, so that we have this summer we're going to take on a bunch more other sports like the Canadian Superbike Championship, the Canadian Dirt Track Championship, all the amateur nationals that you see in Canada and the US that we're going to be doing. So there's a lot of stuff that we're going to be doing, and we need multiples because we'll be doing multiples at once. So it's opened up a new, we had to pivot because obviously when you lose a crowd out of a stadium, I mean, we were kind of like, what do we do now? Because we're more on the promotion side than broadcast traditionally, and we kind of had to pivot. So I'm fortunate that we found this technology when we did.
Yeah, it's awesome. So Jeff, you've been working in production, in the production space. I read many years. I read you were a 3-time Emmy Award winner and producer for some various ESPN projects. To have a brand like Callaway Golf Company, I think, dive into content creation is an interesting thing because I think brands are being more interactive these days. So I'm curious to know what's been your goals for that type of engagement. and walk us through what you're looking to accomplish with that sort of initiative that Callaway is tasking you with.
Yeah, it's kind of a unique setup. When our CMO at the time, he's no longer with the company, kind of contacted me. I was working, at Golf Channel and traditional, television. And he's like, hey, why don't you come run Callaway Media Productions? We have our own network. I'm like, well, what's that? Like, where am I going to find that? And, when you kind of dive into the story, we've been doing it 6 years and we were one of the first. It just kind of makes sense. We don't have to rely on anyone else to tell our stories. We can create content that only a brand can do because we can get into the middle of R&D. We can get into the middle of things that, golfers are really passionate about and that no one else can see. In fact, we just hired someone 2 weeks ago, literally from one of the golf blogs, who basically is going to spend his days going to tournaments and like looking in players' bags and talking to them. Why did you add this club? Why did you tweak the loft and lie? And all the stuff that kind of we call the golf geeks are just super engaged with. And, for us, I think the goals are they kind of go in different buckets. We've purchased 2 ARRI cameras, and now we've actually shot our own TV commercials. So when NBC started doing the playing through, we had an idea to have Phil basically like knock into the camera and basically say, like, don't look over there, what's happening. If a great shot happens, they'll replay it. Look at me. Let me tell you about what I'm going to do. And he kind of talks to the person on the couch who's like, if you move over there and you move over here, and he fires one right at the camera. We shot that completely in-house, and that total cost of production was like $1,500 because everybody was internal. For a commercial spot for a golf brand, that's significant savings. So now we can do more. And then in terms of social digital content, before we had our own internal resources, we were just slow, and the company couldn't react to something. Where now, this is the first major of the year, the ANA Inspiration on the LPGA Tour. We've put out like 11 pieces of content already this week, just because we can do it ourselves. And it's only Tuesday, and the tournament starts Thursday. So it's just one of those things that really made sense. And like I said at the outset, the main reason we did it, and my boss had the vision to do it, was because no one was talking about Callaway. And now we started talking about it. And now the great part is when we do an ad buy, whether it's with a golf magazine or a Gannett with USA Today, we also get content creation as part of it. So we'll create content, they'll help share and distribute it, and we can try to reach a bigger audience. But it's been game changing for the brand. Yeah,
and I think it's certainly a way to connect to the younger, I know the target audience, the Gen Zs, that's right. How they love that interactive experience. And that's for sports.
You have to marry it up with all the different distribution channels, right? So a TV commercial, goes on in one channel and probably is a little bit of an older audience, but we have Instagram, we have, Twitter. We're about to launch our own TikTok account, which thankfully I won't be managing. But it's just one of those things where we're trying to reach everybody who potentially could be a customer.
Yeah, awesome. I think last question I really have is to share some recent projects that you guys did were out of the norm, just new or exciting, and I guess tell me how you pulled it off, obstacles that came up, interesting solutions or workflows that were born out of it. You guys do a lot of different things. So Scott, I'll start with you. You always have interesting sports you're working on, and music and concerts, and I know those are sort of gone away, but what's been new for you?
Yeah, I don't have a ton of music stories at the moment, unfortunately, although that's coming back hopefully. But I think the most interesting thing for us this year was basketball. A couple things, right? One is the networks, most of them, including ESPN, came out with this policy where you can't be anywhere 25 feet or further from the court, right? So that sort of fundamentally changed the way you cover the game. Forever, we've always covered basketball with cameras on the baselines, right under the buckets. Well, now that's gone. So how do you cover it? So we're putting cameras up high behind the baskets and things like that. So that the fundamental way it was covered this year was completely different. And then, like, for example, we just got through doing conference basketball tournaments for ESPN, and we kind of touched on it earlier, but they were so complex compared to what we're used to, where you've got a basketball tournament in Norfolk, Virginia. We're carrying the cameras back to Austin to do all the execution of the production. One announcer in Chicago, one in somewhere else in Texas, the statisticians in Atlanta, 4 or 5 producers from ESPN in all different disparate parts of the country. They're adding graphics at another location in Bristol. It's just there's 10 different moving parts at 10 disparate locations, right? and bringing all that together into one TV show. That's the part that really it was crazy for us this year. It was just how complex it became. But we adapted to it like everybody else and figured it out. And like we said earlier, now all that stuff is here to stay. That's just the way it's going to be now.
Yeah, well, hopefully you can bring the camera closer one day. But we'll see.
Yeah, hopefully we can get back to the baselines.
Yeah. Jeff, how about you? Anything recent new that's been an oddball in your world?
I mean, we just finished, kind of back to back, kind of our two biggest shoots of the year with our Tour Pros, first with the PGA Tour Pros and then with the LPGA Tour Pros. And it's just kind of like what Scott was saying. It's just the protocols, for the shoot down in Ponte Vedra, instead of getting 2 holes on a golf course, we actually had to buy a 9-hole golf course just so we could spread people out and have enough distance to where everybody felt comfortable that we could do what we want. We've tried to sort of mimic a little bit what the NFL did with those kind of shallow depth of field cameras. We're going to put out some content next week during Masters Week that kind of shows that. And really, it's just, the different protocols that we have to follow. We had a situation earlier in the year at an ad shoot in December where one of our Tour Pros in the middle of the ad shoot found out that they had been contacted with someone in close contact with someone who tested positive, and we literally had to stop down a shoot and then redo it 6 weeks later, and that wasn't cheap. But it's just one of those things that you just have to kind of keep adjusting and going. And really for us, it's been a lot more of the smaller stuff where we can get one player with the LiveU setup to be able to capture content in a smaller kind of situation. And then the next one we have coming up is we use influencer marketing, as I think everybody does. And we have some golf influencers who are going to go on a trip to Hawaii and do like an island hop challenge. And, the backpack will be traveling on that one as well to be able to kind of bring that back to everybody, which hopefully will be kind of a unique thing if we can kind of figure out all the logistics of it.
Yeah, I would love to come for support if you need it. I will
Absolutely.
be there.
I'd like to go too.
Justin, how about you? Any recent crazy out of the park projects?
Well, basically right now we partnered up long term with Flow Sport for our streaming part for a lot of our projects we're doing. Nice. And I think they already use some LiveU stuff of their own on some other projects for everything from tennis to you name it, sports wise. But in the motorcycle space and in the motorsport space, they're really new. So we're helping them navigate through that. So that partnership really revolves around this LiveU because they need obviously streaming, broadcast quality streams for their streaming channel, but they don't have the network capabilities as far as finances to make that happen. So it's got to be more of a budget but high quality shoot. So that's really, without the LiveU, you wouldn't make that happen. I mean,
congrats,
just drop in with a satellite or whatever. It's just. Satellite costs, I don't know about in the US, but I know in Canada, I mean, we were, 2-day shoot would be $28,000 in just satellite costs, right? So that was, getting a deal. So that's the stuff that it really has changed the game as far as what we do. And I mean, one thing that we have done, and it's 2 different things that we've done, is one in the Triple Crown series in Canada. Our announcers had to be on site for other reasons of actually a part of the event. So we did a video return to them. So everything came back to studio. It was edited and graphics and everything like that, sent back to them and announced and then put all together as one. The other unique thing we did is this winter, now we did the shoot that we weren't allowed in the US for, that we have a studio a broadcast studio and the studio beside it, so that we actually put the announcers in studio. We brought all the stuff back from Cam's, mixed it here, put them together, and then bottled it up to Fox Sports that way. So there's 2 unique ways that we've done it. Both are good and for their own right, that what you need to do, but it's the uniqueness of it that allows you to do things that you couldn't do with just having on site. You're limited to having them there. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. No, congrats on Flow Sports. I love the OTT networks, the sports networks that are popping up, making it, these sports for fans just more available. It's not just linear broadcast. Thank you, Scott, Jeff, Justin, so much for your time. Again, really good points you all brought up. Appreciate you being LiveU customers and taking the chance on our product and solutions and even 12 years ago, the news world took a chance and replaced microwave trucks. Now the sports world is making that jump, and all of the input that customers have provided us have only made our products better. And so thank you so much. And appreciate you guys. I'm going to conclude this panel with an offer, because although, contrary to you being on this, everyone being on this panel, I'm not a host, but I am a saleswoman. So I'm going to jump in with an offer. So we are offering rental credits to any customer who's looking to try out any of the equipment before they want to lease or buy. So if any of you guys are interested in trying it out and you've got an event, you want to rent it, any rental will go 100% towards a contract that you make with us, whether lease or purchase. So Joyce is going to post a link in the chat if you're interested, or there's a promo button in the bottom corner, as well as, reminder to check out the ebook if you guys get a chance. Guys, you want to say goodbye?
Thank you, Janelle.
Thanks.
Bye.
Awesome.
See you, Janelle.
Thanks, guys.
See you guys.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone, and hope to see you again soon, and stay safe.